Hi there, and welcome to Hanoi's Noi Bai Airport in the north of Vietnam. I just arrived here on one of the world's busiest air routes from Saigon. On a normal day, you could easily see 50 to 60 flights in each direction between the two cities, reaching around 100 per day during Lunar New Year, many of which are on wide-body aircraft. A full third of the passengers passing through this airport are going to Saigon. That domestic flight left me in Terminal 1, which is used for domestic flights, and now I'm on my way to Terminal 2 with the free shuttle service. Hanoi's airport is a very special kind of nothing special. Terminal 2, where we are now, opened in 2015, and it's almost as if it was designed to be a film set of an airport ready to look like any airport anywhere. But I do still love it, in the same way that I love tap water. It's vital, great to have access to, and is objectively bland. Before we get into any more odd airport descriptions though, let me welcome any of you that might be new to the channel. My name is Kevin. I'm here to give you a self-funded and honest look at some of the best, and some of the not so best, airlines and hotels in the world, which I've been bringing to you full time for the past 4 years. Check out my hundreds of videos, scan the QR code, or click the link in the description to learn more about the channel. For now, let's get this flight without a view started. Yes, you heard me right, a flight without a view. As we check in, let me explain. I booked this flight via Air France. For a while, Air France had this absurd deal, or glitch really, I don't know which it was, that existed between Hanoi and either Chicago or Boston via Paris. Vietnam Airlines to Paris, and then Air France to the US. All of this in business class for 55,000 flying blue points. For a comparison, 55,000 is normally a decent deal these days just between the US and Europe. The only downside to buying tickets this way though, and you're only going to know this if you, like me, take a very deep, hours-long dive down a flyer talk rabbit hole, is that you cannot select your seat on the first flight. This is not a case of, oh, you got to call or get a new PNR or something like that. You simply cannot choose a seat until you check in. I am oversimplifying here, but there are two basic types of code-sharing agreements. The most common one is when airlines simply sell flights on behalf of each other. They are more or less booking agents for the transaction, which has one of their own flights on it, and that's about it. Then there's another type. Someone let me know if there's a specific name for this. The other type is when one airline physically buys a certain number of seats on a partner's flight, and it's their job to sell them. In real terms, Air France purchases 4 seats on each of these flights from Hanoi to Paris. They are the center seats in the last 2 rows, and Vietnam Airlines will not be able to select any specific seat for you until you check in, and you will not be able to check in online. When I checked in for my flight in Saigon, I asked an agent if she could check me in for this flight. She couldn't, but I explained the situation, and she said that she would block the only window seat left for me and put a note on it so that the check-in team in Hanoi could see. That's fantastic. Well, of course I got to Hanoi and it was gone. Long story short, they were very nice, but there was nothing that could be done. The agents did go out of their way, though, to block the seat next to me as a sort of an apology for what happened, even though that obviously was not necessary. Anyway, let's head up to the Vietnam Airlines Lotus Lounge. There are some decent lounges in Vietnam, but for sure thing, nothing top tier. But this lounge left a lot to be desired. As far as lounges go, it just felt like an afterthought in a space that should be a flagship lounge. Their lounges in Saigon are significantly nicer and just cozier? I don't know. Vietnam Airlines began as the Civil Aviation Authority of Vietnam in 1956 as part of the North Vietnamese Air Force. They began civilian operations with support from the USSR and China, flying Soviet aircraft as they were under a trade embargo from the US. Fast forward to 1994, President Clinton lifted the embargo, and within 2 months, Vietnam Airlines began phasing out the inefficient Soviet aircraft that they had. By 1996, when ties with the US were normalized, the government combined 20 different companies into what we now know as Vietnam Airlines. Currently, the government owns 86% of the company, with almost 6% being held by ANA. Their first non-stop transcontinental route was to Paris in 1993, when they received their first Boeing 777s. Vietnam Airlines, or VNA, has a split hub system between Hanoi and Saigon. For nearly all of their long-haul destinations, they fly from both, but not daily for all destinations. For their long-haul operation, currently they have a total of 44 weekly flights to Europe, 23 to Australia, and 4 to the US. Interestingly, they'll soon be starting service to Milan, which on the surface doesn't seem like it's so far out of left field, but it is. It's the first non-stop destination for the airline that is not serving a large diaspora population, which for someone that follows VNA closely, seems like a significant step into what may be growth into more Western two-way leisure markets. As far as expansion goes, this is a very conservative airline, and so every little blip like this, you can read a novel into it. Let's get on board. Our 8-year-old A350 was waiting for us for an on-time boarding. I've been in this cabin quite a few times before on short flights, especially during COVID when the upgrade bids were like $30 each. I actually filmed my first ever testing trip report in one of these cabins. The cabin has a standard reverse herringbone layout in a 1-2-1 configuration, with a total of 29 seats in business class. Considering how beautiful their livery is, truly one of the best in the world, kinda boggles my mind why their interiors are such a strange, drab color. Note that Vietnam Airlines has two very different A350 layouts. Some of them are like this with a true premium economy behind business, and the other layout is a standard business class, similar to what you'd find on Asiana, Qantas, and the like, with a fake premium economy class. On that other version, they advertise seats as premium economy, but they're actually just economy seats with extra legroom. If booking a long-haul flight, this is something to definitely look out for. Color and no window aside, the seat is one of the standards of the industry at this point, with a version of this exact same seat on countless airlines, including Cathay Pacific. Storage is okay, but I would appreciate a setup a bit more like Cathay's with closed storage and a net to hold things near the cup holder, but overall, it's still a great seat. If you're enjoying the video and would like to support the channel, there are a couple of ways that you can do so. A quick like on the video and clicking subscribe helps the video with the algorithm. You could join my YouTube channel memberships to get early access to some videos and access all of my community posts. Or you could check out my Patreon, where I post the most and can also help you out if you have travel related questions. Whatever you do, thanks for doing it. Since this was an overnight flight, the crew thoughtfully offered to put the mattress toppers on before takeoff. They're just a thin covering, but plush, cozy, and an unexpectedly nice touch. Pre-departure drinks were passed around as the safety video began to play. I have to say, from the moment that I stepped on board, it was crystal clear that the service on this flight was not going to be what I expected. I don't think many would disagree with me when I say that Vietnam Airlines typically has friendly, well-intentioned service that lacks polish and consistency. Well, not tonight. Tonight, I could have been on a Singapore Airlines or an EVA flight, and the crew from this flight would have fit in seamlessly on those airlines. You could tell that the purser just ran a very tight ship. She was active throughout the flight, engaging with all passengers, and just simply fast at getting things done. And this trickled down to all of the crew, especially the one serving my aisle. It was just a very impressive bunch, perhaps even more so because it did seem like it was a relatively young bunch too. Whether it's better, more thoughtful training, or a purser with a magic wand, whatever VNA is doing, they need to continue to do it. So, yeah, we took off and started flying. Let's check out the onboard amenities. The bedding was again better than I expected. The pillow was plump and plush, and the comforter, which folded up into its own little carrying sleeve, which I loved, was delightfully soft and just the right weight. Round that out with a pair of open-toe slippers, and the only thing I can even come close to complaining about here is the color, and that's the last time I'll say that. Let's get into the meal service. Menus were passed around just before takeoff and were collected when orders were taken, but the crew were happy to let me keep mine, even bringing over the in-flight coffee menu later to ensure I could take a photo of it. Without exception, every single time a member of crew interacted with a passenger, they squat down to be at eye level. Here's the full menu. The red prices on the wine list are my addition to the graphic, just to give you an idea of the wine value on board. Of course, it is all free. The dinner service was a tray service. Now, I do think the food is one area where they could improve. For both the Vietnamese options and the Western ones, the offerings were very basic and certainly non-offensive, but lacked even the tiniest bit of pizzazz, something. The Western menu began with a salad with smoked salmon roll, caviar, and mushrooms. It was a bit of a collection of things. Tasty enough though, at a 7 out of 10. For the main Western dish, I had a choice of beef fillet with pepper sauce and potatoes, or beef fillet with pepper sauce and potatoes. Yes, it was printed twice. It was fine. Served its purpose. 6.5 out of 10. Dessert, which had been hiding on the corner of the tray, was a mango pudding at a 7.5 out of 10. Soon after dinner, things went dark and I had a browse of the entertainment system. The screen was bright and responsive, the moving map was great, and the selection of movies and TV shows on offer was decent. Definitely plenty to get you through a round trip. The amenity kit was by Cerruti 1881 and was surprisingly much more stylish than I was expecting. I think I was expecting something like one of those generic nylon pouches with V&A branding. The contents were basic but had your essentials. A good kit overall. Maybe it was the perfect timing of the flight. Maybe it was the bedding, but my god, I slept like a baby on this flight. Like a solid 6 or 7 hours, which for me is rare. I woke up to a sunrise, allegedly, and breakfast soon began. The Western option was a cheese omelet with grilled ham and lyonnaise potatoes. We also got a croissant and a coffee bun, which I do love, so points for that, plus fruit and yogurt. Relatively speaking, this was significantly better than the dinner, at a solid and auspicious 8.8 out of 10. For the record, the reason I didn't order anything Vietnamese on this flight is because I have never been wowed or really satisfied with noodle soup on a plane. As a snack on a very long flight, maybe, but not as a meal. For dinner, the choices were fish noodle soup or congee, and for breakfast, it was beef noodle soup. A strange festival of soup. Soon after that, we began our descent into Paris's Charles de Gaulle Airport, which I kinda had a view for. This was an impressive flight, and squashed what I guess were pre-existing assumptions that I had about VNA on long-haul flights. I know they regularly offer affordable fares between Europe and Australia, and I think I'd be happy as a clam flying them again long-haul in business. I can comfortably move them up to an 8. So I really do hope that you enjoyed this trip report today. If you did, please be sure to click that like button and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out on my twice weekly videos. I'll see you next time on a fantastic flight on Air France to Chicago. As always, thanks for watching until the end.